Borrelli, the head wrestling coach at Central Michigan University. This is my 31st year of coaching. I started out as a high school coach in South Carolina at Goose Creek High School. It's a suburb of Charleston, South Carolina. Coached there for a year, then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Coached there for 4 years, a high school, Riverwood High School, a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, in Fulton County, North Fulton County. And from there I went to Clemson University as an assistant. I worked on my graduate degree there and was an assistant, graduate assistant at Clemson University for 2 years. So I've been a head high school coach for 5 years, an assistant college coach for 2 years, and then I moved on to be a head Division II coach at Lake Superior State University. I was there for 5 years. That's in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And from Lake Superior State, I moved to Central Michigan University, and this is my 20th year as the head coach at Central Michigan University, which is in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. So I've been a head coach in college for 25 years.
Coach, I think there's a lot of people in college wrestling and fans of college wrestling that look to your program and say it's a model for somebody who's taken a program and made it very strong. And so people turn to you as the type of guy who's really built a program. Can you tell me a little bit about it, you know, when you started, where you've come, and just tell us a little bit how you've gotten where you are?
Well, when I left Lake Superior State and took the head coaching job at Central Michigan University, we actually, when I got there, we had 4 scholarships, and at the time the NCAA limit was 11. We had no assistant coach. Our assistant coach actually was paid $1,500. He worked at the local high school, and he would come over and he made $1,500 for helping me with the wrestling program. And our program, although it had a decent history when Chick Sherwood was the head coach, he was the head coach there for 25 years. In the 2 years previous to my head coaching reign, they were down a little bit. At the time, I think there were 6 teams in the Mid-American Conference, and they finished 5th, a half a point out of last place. You know, the year before I took the head coaching job. So it was a program that at the time they had also just recently made a decision whether they were going to drop men's sport. And they decided, there was a board of trustees vote, and they decided to drop men's soccer instead of wrestling. So wrestling was on the chopping block the year before I took over. So there were a lot of things that we had to deal with from the start, and it's been quite an experience for the 20 years.
Okay. So tell me, when you're coaching guys now, what are the things that you want your guys to learn when they go through your program?
The most important thing is, you know, building a young man into an adult, and teaching them responsibility, accountability for everything they do, for their actions off the mat, for their actions academically, for their actions athletically. And I don't think there's a better place to do that than in a competitive athletic environment. You know, I think if you obviously, the most important thing to any coach, I think, is the type of men that you build from your program. And the most memories I have aren't wins and losses. You know, they're not, obviously you have, you know, great dual meet victories over your career. You have high placings in the national tournament. You have All-Americans. You have national champions. But the thing that sticks out the most is when you get together with the guys that you were around, and you just tell stories. You know, they talk about, you know, this road trip or that road trip. And those are the things you remember, just the interactions you have with them, mostly away from the mat, you know, and you know, having a chance to watch them grow up, having a chance to see their families, you know, and see the type of people that you've produced. And you know, to me, that's the most rewarding thing.
Coach, can you tell me, have you had a chance to think about, you know, when you think about creating good quality individuals, have you had a chance to think about how that helps wrestling?
Oh, there's no question. You know, I don't know if wrestling would have survived over through the issues that we've survived in the last 30 years if it wasn't for the people that have graduated and gone on into the business world, gone on into the professional areas, lawyers, doctors, CEOs, you know, military men, that have come to the forefront, in the last 30 years and saved a lot of programs, and it's amazing how popular wrestling really is. It's a subculture. It's amazing. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody really roots for everyone else. When we're competing, obviously, there's loyalties to certain teams, but when it really comes down to it, everybody's out for the best interest of wrestling most of the time.
Coach, can you tell me what are the ways that you've kept athletes, not only retain when they're wrestling on your team, but how do you keep them involved with your program after they're done?
There's a lot of things. Technology has changed so much over the years. Now we have Facebook pages, we have emails, we have our own website where every week we have it's called a Wrestling Insider, where they interview me, they interview guys on the team. So it's pretty easy to keep them involved, and those things have really created opportunities for fundraising, for promoting your marketing and promoting your events. And our crowds have grown exponentially because of new technology. I think as a head coach, you have to be on the cutting edge of some of those things, and you have to really take advantage of those things because, let's face it, we're not a mass media sport. We have to use the internet, we have to use Facebook, we have to use things that are just now becoming available.
Coach, if somebody was trying to get you to convince not only high school coaches but college coaches the importance of the way that you deal with your athletes and fundraising down the road, what are the things that you would tell them?
The most important thing is to kind of have those discussions with your athletes when they're there, when they're in your program, because when they get away, it's a little more difficult to make a cold call to someone and say, hey, we need this, we need that, So I think making them feel important, making them feel valuable, regardless of where they are in the pecking order, whether they're your third 125-pounder, your first heavyweight, or whatever, you have to make them feel a part of a family. You have to make them feel important, and then you have to tell them, for us to make this work, we've got to have you remain a part of the family when you're gone, and that has to start when they're young, when they're freshmen, when they're sophomores, and they have to see the value in that.
Coach, have you ever failed at that process where you dealt with a guy wrong and maybe it hurt you down the road?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think you can be as tough as you want on people and maybe deal with the kid the wrong way, but as long as he still knows you care about him and that he's valuable, and down the road, you just have those conversations with him. You say, well, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that, but we need your help. We need you to stay a part of the family. You're important to us. I don't think I've ever had anyone that I've asked directly turn me down, through bitterness.
We've started to get an idea of the things that you believe in as a coach and in your program, but how do you choose captains and how do you use captains to carry out the things that you're doing in your program?
I think the most important thing when you're choosing a captain is you're choosing someone that leads by example all the time. Not necessarily the best wrestler on your team, but the guy that leads by example all the time. And what I mean by that is, he's going to be the coach with his peers. He's going to be the guys when things start going in the wrong direction. He's going to steer the ship back in the right direction. That's to me that's what a captain is. And that might be a social setting. That might be an academic issue. That might be something that's going on behind the scenes with the team. And maybe there's a little he said, she said stuff going on, and the guy who's the real leader is going to step up and say, no, that's not right. This is the direction we're going. Those are the guys that have to be your leaders. You can sometimes have great athletes, very talented young men that don't necessarily do all the right things, and everybody thinks they're the leader of your program, but maybe they're not.
Speaking of, I think, a different level of leadership, what role have assistant coaches played in the things that you've done with your program?
The assistant coaches that I've had have been just tremendous. Our first full-time assistant was Sean Charles. He's the head coach at Arizona State right now, and he was fantastic with our guys. From a technical standpoint, I couldn't have asked for a better person, and at the time he was trying to make the Olympic team himself, so he had won the U.S. Nationals and been in the top 3 on the Olympic ladder for a number of years, so he was a fantastic technician and a fantastic workout partner. But the thing that was also special about Sean was he could keep everybody loose. He made the sport fun, you know, and he was the type of guy that he was boastful, you know, so he gave our guys a lot of confidence, you know, and that really helped our program. And then after him was a young man named Casey Cunningham who wrestled for us, and Casey was a fantastic leader. Just I couldn't ask for a better person as far as lead by example in every facet of his life. And he was our captain. He was the guy that, you know, before that, he kind of filled the role that we just talked about when we were talking about captains and leadership. But then when he became an assistant coach, it was even, you know, more evident, you know. So, you know, I was kind of spoiled for, you know, eight years with Casey and 4 years with Sean. And then now I have an assistant coach, Mark DeSalvo, that's just invaluable as far as he wrestled for us, was a couple-time All-American. But he's the one that has really mentored me as far as the technology and the marketing and the, you know, he's really into those kind of things. And he, you know, I used to be just an old wrestling coach. You know, I like to be in the wrestling room. My forte is, you know, single legs, double legs, technique, and you can't be that way anymore. You know, and Mark has really opened my eyes to a lot of things as far as advancing the program.
I got to stop for a second. And you just said that your assistant coach, a younger guy's mentoring you, right?
Right.
So you just said?
Right.
Okay, talk about that a little bit more, because there's a lot of coaches who would never be willing to do that with an assistant coach, and a younger assistant coach, learn from them.
Well, I grew up in a different era. You know, I grew up in an era where I never saw myself wrestle on film, and if I saw any matches, they were on the reel-to-reel stuff that went, you know. And now we have the internet, we have, you know, Facebook, we have email, like I've mentioned, and I didn't grow up in that generation, so it takes me a little while to adapt to those things and see the importance of those things. But someone who grew up in that generation is really in tune to that and knows, you know, how to reach people because of that media. He's teaching me those kind of things. You know, he's made. I never had a Facebook page until this year. You know, and but you know, now I have to learn how to get on Facebook because we have a Facebook page. We've had one for a couple of years. Now I have one. We advertise our camps. We advertise our matches. You know, and to be honest with you, recruits are all over that stuff. I mean, if you're not on Facebook, you're not a good recruiter right now. You know.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit. You know, and I've gotten the feeling from this interview. How does it make you feel when you're able to work with young coaches and they move along and all of a sudden they go out and they get a big job?
You know, that makes you feel really good until they are good enough to beat you. No, you know, we just wrestled Missouri, and Jason Mester was wrestled for me, and he's one of their assistant coaches, and they just kicked us pretty good. But you know, I'm excited for those guys. You know, we've got a lot of guys that have gone through our program, and you know, they've stayed in wrestling, and some of them are head coaches, some of them are first assistants, some of them are second assistants, and they're doing very well. And you know, you wish them the best. And you know, if they call me and ask me, I'm probably too forthcoming. You know, and I watch their teams wrestle, and I see, you know, some of the things they're doing, and I'm like, wow, maybe we shouldn't have taught him that. Yeah. You know, but it's all great.
Turn it off.
Yeah. So.